Hey guys, I'm Angela and welcome back to another Hobby Night episode. This week I thought we'd do something a little bit different. I wanted to work on a bit of terrain because, well, I have a lot of terrain. Let me show you. A lot of terrain. A lot of terrain. So I thought we would pick up the 3 new paints that GW put out: Runelord Brass, Canoptek Alloy, and Cryptek Armourshade Gloss, and we're going to paint up a few test pieces for terrain to see how these paints work on them. In addition to those 3 colors, we're also going to prime our miniatures initially in Gray Seer so that we have a nice base coat for our colors to stick to. And I also went ahead and chose to add Leadbelcher into the mix because I wanted to add a few accent pieces as we were painting so that we had a little bit more variety and could also see how the shade worked over top of it. So these are the 3 pieces that I'm going to be painting. I have a barricade that I've got dozens of these, so I'm hoping this is going to be a real quick, easy way for us to get these painted up. I also have this really cool piece that I have from Urban Conquest, as well as this random wall that is made of resin that I have no idea where it's come from. So those are my 3 test pieces, and we're gonna go ahead and move on to our first paint, the Runelord Brass, and thin it a little bit. As you might remember from Duncan Jones, you always want to thin your paints and put 2 layers on, and I definitely found that is true with this particular paint. Metallics in general, in my experience, tend to go on a little more thinly, and so you tend to want to layer them to make sure you get a solid color through. So we're gonna go through the entire thing in one thin coat, and then we'll do a second coat later, and we'll do this on basically all 3 terrain pieces. And after those 2 thin coats, we are looking great. We have a fantastic metallic sheen, but it's a little flat. The panels on the wall especially don't really do much for me right now, and I want to definitely enhance that. So we're going to be moving on to our shade next. But first, I wanted to show you the Leadbelcher details that I pulled out on our statue here, specifically on the Iron Halo and on his pauldron. And I think it really is looking very good. We have a nice definition, and I think I'll probably add this to maybe the wall later on as well, just because I really like what we're getting. So now we're going to move on and go ahead and apply that new shade that GW has come out with. And I will go ahead and say, just right off the bat, this shade will definitely really enhance the glossiness of these metallics. It dries extremely glossy. It almost looks wet still when it's dry. And I even noticed a slight tackiness to it over time. Even like a day after I had dry brushed everything else and finished these pieces, it still had a little bit of a tackiness to it. So keep that in mind when you're using it. It might be a little sticky on your fingers if you get any on it, but it does amazing things to the miniatures. As you can see here, we have a nice deeper bronze. There are some shadows really filled in nicely, and it even looks great over our Leadbelcher. I still think you can tell that there is a difference between the 2 colors, but it does sort of unify them and make it look like a solid piece, which is great. Next up, I wanted to do a customary touch-up phase where I go back over with my Gray Seer base coat and basically clean up all the details that I don't want to be metallic, which includes mostly the ground on both the statue as well as the wall, but there's a few pieces on the statue as well that I don't want to be metallic, including the skull as well as the eye on the mechanical side of his face, because I don't know if it's super easy to tell in the videos, but you might be able to see it here. There are 2 sides to his face, and one side is sort of a plate or something like that. So he has this mechanical eye in there, and I have some plans for that with a particularly cool color that we'll show you in a little bit for our detail stage. But before we get to that detail stage, there's one last thing that I want to do to our metallics, and that is to use the new layer paint Canoptek alloy as a dry brush over basically everything, with the exception of the Leadbelcher. While I'll get a little bit on that when I do my dry brushing on specifically the statue, I do go back over with some Leadbelcher, which you'll see here in a bit. But this paint, this new Canoptek alloy, I think is my favorite. I think it is the winner for me in regards to the three paints that I have tested today, because while I like the shade, the alloy really brings out a beautiful highlight and picks up all of our raised edges really, really nicely. And I just love really all three paints combined together, but this one I think I will end up using more often by itself because I just really enjoy this sort of silvery brass color tone that they have produced with this new paint. And I just think they are all gorgeous. But as I said, I did want to go back over and dry brush some Leadbelcher back over top the portions that we already made Leadbelcher to really enhance that silver color tone, and I honestly think it was the 100% correct choice. I get some really, really nice highlights, and really it was only just two colors. It's Leadbelcher and the shade, and then Leadbelcher back over top of itself. And honestly, I really love that about these metallic paints. They end up giving you this great finish with very little effort, which for terrain making is perfect. You don't want to spend a lot of time painting up your terrain when you'd rather be either painting your miniatures for your army or just playing the game. And so this gives us a great effective way to do simple terrain, but make it look really stand out and just beautiful on the table with minimal effort. I also wanted to encourage you to experiment with your metallic paints and don't be afraid to mix and match them and play around to see what different effects you can get, because while I used Leadbelcher on this particular statue here, I could have easily used a gold or done some other color tone, and I think it could have been a totally different look and equally as good, so make sure to play around. Next up, we are going to go ahead and finish up our details using Basilicanum Gray contrast paint on the ground. We're going to be using a Skeleton Horde contrast paint on the skulls on the statue that are sort of tucked into a few places on him. And then finally, my favorite color that I decided to use on this sort of last minute, but it worked out really well and I remembered that I had it, was the technical paint that I'm really, really fond of. It's called Spiritstone Red, and you can see here that I am applying it to the eye that I talked about earlier. Now, when I was dry brushing this mini, I did get some metallic on the eye, and that was okay. I did the cleanup stage initially thinking I was just going to use Blood Angel's Red on the eye just to pop it a little bit, but I remembered I had this paint, and it needs a metallic beneath it.
Angela! What is all this?
I might have a problem. I have too many minis to paint and not enough subscribers to encourage me to do it. So don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the videos.
Finally, I just wanted to hit them with a quick satin varnish to knock back that shine of the shade just a smidge so our metallics were a little softer.
Oh my God, they came out so good. I loved what this varnish did to them. God, even the dirt looks good. And I didn't even do anything to it other than put Basilicanum Gray on it.
Turn it.
God, it just is so awesome. I don't even, oh, and look at the skulls. Look how the skulls turned out. That is so sick. Dude, our terrain is gonna look amazing.
You are very right, Angela. It does look amazing, and it looks even better standing next to our now fully painted figures. And I can't wait to paint up some more terrain using this technique. I think it's going to work really, really well for us and allow us to get stuff on the table very quickly, especially when that new 9th edition starter set comes out, because it has some pretty cool terrain pieces, and I think these colors are going to work beautifully on them. I am very excited with them. I'm very happy with them as well, and I can't wait to see what people start doing with these, because the metallics that Citadel creates, in my experience, tend to be pretty awesome, and they continue to blow my mind, and I just hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a lot about some quick ways of painting terrain. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think, and if you're going to be using this technique on your own terrain in the future, or if you have other color palettes that you like to go with. Let me know, and I will see you guys next time.